Well, today marks the start of National Marine Week, in case you didn't know, and that's a campaign aimed at educating South Africans about the role oceans play in their daily lives. It also aims to promote sustainable use and conservation for the benefit of present and future generations. Well, this morning our focus is on the continuous rise of plastic waste in the ocean. The Endangered Wildlife Trust is using this week to conduct educational talks at schools. The EWT's Source to Sea program manager, Bridget Corrigan, is joining us now in the studio. Bridget, good morning and thank you very much for coming in.
Good morning, Dan.
I love fish. I really do. I try and eat as much as I can, but it's so expensive. But just by the side, I mean, how important is it for us to be educating our children about the importance of taking care of our oceans?
Dan, it's hugely important. I think that for a long time, the oceans have been considered a bit of a dumping ground for waste. And more we're actually seeing it catching up with us. And to educate the young kids, they go back and they tell their parents about what they've learned. They're the ones that are actually going to need to face the consequences of what we are doing to our oceans.
Of our destructive ways. What are you doing this week in particular at schools?
So this week we've got a few talks at different schools throughout the province where we are looking at explaining the linkages between the catchments, the riverine systems, and then the nearshore and then the marine environments. So a lot of the time people don't realize that whatever you do in the catchment ends up in the river, ends up in the oceans. So making that linkage very clear, and that the role of every citizen in not littering and not sort of ending up, litter ending up in our oceans is
I guess when you say catchment, you talk about upstream.
Yes,
you have a lot of waste being dumped upstream on the rivers and the dams, and that flows all the way, finds itself also into the ocean. And also you've got very high pollution happening in the sea itself by ships that are trading and crisscrossing the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean. Yes,
and you're seeing a lot of that with the land-based marine pollution is happening a lot around the urban sort of coastal centres, whereas on the remote beaches, a lot of those kind of waste from fishing vessels, transport ships, that's ending up on our more remote beaches that we're finding.
Yeah, you've mentioned in your press statement ahead of the National Marine Week that there's an issue about plastic waste. How bad is it? How much of the waste that we see today, that you find today from research in the ocean, is actually plastic-based?
A huge percentage of it, actually, from as far back as the 1980s. A survey on the 50 South African beaches from the Eastern Cape down through to Cape Town actually found that about 90% of the waste found was accrued to plastic. So it's a big proportion of it. And the number of, or the percentage of virgin pellets of plastic, those are the ones that the plastic industry actually uses to make products. That's been on the decrease we've seen, but on the increase has actually been the user plastic, the end user plastic product.
Yeah, we've been told before that even for human beings, I mean, plastic is not really that safe. I mean, some of the products that are used there can be carcinogenic. Does the same apply to marine life, to sharks, to fish, to turtles, and all the beautiful animals that we find in the sea?
Yes, two of the biggest issues around marine wildlife is ingestion of plastic. So they think it's a jellyfish floating in the sea. If they see a plastic bag, they swallow it and it ends up in their digestive tract. If it doesn't choke them, then it stops their digestive processes from happening, and then they'll end up dying. So seabirds, turtles, seals, they are heavily affected by plastics. So ingestion is the main one, or one of the main ones. But also entanglement is quite a serious issue. So, a lot of the stats don't pick up on the entanglement until it washes up on shore. But those are the two big issues. And obviously it moves up through the food chain. So even phytoplankton, those little sort of algal creatures that whales need to survive, the microbeads that you find in plastics actually get into those digestive tracts, they crash
basically, even over time, then even the fish that you
goes up through the food system.
You also be affecting us over time.
Yeah.
Just very briefly, what would you as a trust would have hoped to achieve by the end of this week, which is the Marine, which is an awareness week? I know you've got a campaign around schools, but if you look back on Friday to say, gee, this was a success for us, what would that be?
Sure. Well, I think what we would want is to sort of put the message out there that everyone can do something about waste, about land-based marine waste, about plastics. And although it is a global issue, everyone can do something. From when you do your grocery shopping, just be conscious about the bags that you use, the plastic that you use, about the packaging you use. It's not necessary to have excessive plastic, excessive packaging in your shopping. And if you can get around those little things, we would be happy to end this week on that note.
Okay, great. Well, good luck. And of course, December is upon us. Holidays are coming up. We're all from Gauteng. We're in the internet, heading to the beaches, and then we litter there. Just bear that in mind. Do not litter on the beaches, because it might end up in the sea as well.
Exactly,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Good luck. And that's Bridget Corrigan, Source to Sea Program Manager for the Endangered Wildlife Trust.